Hey everybody, we are back with another episode of Bullish Top Stocks to Watch for the weekend. Why? And before we get into it, as always, hey, these are only my opinions. Do your own due diligence. This is not financial advice. This is just kind of what I'm watching, maybe also what I'm playing. This is helpful for me to put together weekly to kind of just, I don't want to watch, thousands of stocks. I want to watch a handful, 5 or 10 stocks, over the past, couple weeks that I have a bull thesis for. And hopefully this is helpful to other people. It's helpful for me. Hopefully it's helpful for somebody else. Also, give us a follow here or a sub here on YouTube. Help me feel good about myself. Give us a like and subscribe for sure. Also, leave a comment below. Hey, tell me what you're watching, or if you agree, disagree. Hey, I'd love to have dialogue and discourse. Appreciate that. Also, real_bullish wherever you get your social media poison. Pretty active on Instagram, Twitter, and stock twits. So also realbullish.com. Go up and sign for our newsletter. Get some merch. There's a link there for some merch. Like my shirt, but hey, I am a biased opinion. All right, gonna jump into it. So some quick news for the weeks. Earnings kicked off strong last week. Really coming in strong this week in terms of earnings upcoming, right? We had I think we really had earnings like the last part, like the ones you needed to watch for were kind of the bank earnings last week. And this week we're going to have more of the same, but more of that, right? Overall, nothing too crazy coming in, but I was reading the Seeking Alpha article. Shout out to Seeking Alpha. They have a really good publication that I subscribe to, a premium service, which is well worth the money for me. They had a weekly recap on Friday. They have a weekly recap on Friday, and they have a forward-looking one on Saturday mornings. Basically, I was reading and it was say overall earnings for the S&P 500 companies are expected to be up more than 20% this quarter. So earnings are expected to be better than they were this time last year. That doesn't mean that prices are going to rise accordingly. Had a lot of headwinds coming in that weren't there last week, or last year, like a hawkish, Fed, rising interest, higher and more permanent inflation. Supply chain issues that we know of now. A lot of things different. So just because earnings are expected, like I said, 20% over, supposed to be better, 20% more than this time last year, don't take that as a sign of, hey, these stocks are going to go up. It could be a catalyst to the upside, but it can also be a catalyst to the downside. Also, I'm trying to change the format a little bit of how this is going to go on. I do like doing it weekly, but I'm taking on some additional responsibility for the foreseeable future, where I might not be able to do it as often. So I'm playing with the format, maybe like bi-weekly, where I have like one longer show or two longer shows a week, and then some smaller ones throughout. Like the week I don't have like a longer show. Still kind of playing with that, but more to come on that one. Anyways, looking at starting, I think I'm going to start actually with the SPY. I actually really like starting with the SPY, and I'm watching the SPY because it follows the S&P 500 index ETF, which I enjoy watching and playing, if not daily, then weekly, right? Just because it's a good indicator of where the market is going, what the market is doing. Of course, like built up by the top 500 companies, heavily weighted in like big tech though. So you have to keep that in mind there. But anyways, the SPY was down like almost, I think, 0.29% last week. Not the worst case, but setting up into earnings weekend or earnings, like really high earnings coming into show. But still, hey, it's kind of what it's doing right now. It's still like in that kind of same phase that we saw from early November, and I'll kind of get a little bit deeper. So I'm talking about. So in November, basically the first week of November, it started trading at this 470. So that's been an important area, 470, but also 453, 454. These two areas that I've been watching. It's kind of been meandering for a few months, kind of in this area, top and bottom. We haven't been really to break to the upside or the downside. Not the worst thing. Like I said, SPY blasted last year, right? SPY, I think, was up 28% over 2021, and it's expected not to blast, but to kind of slow grind up for 2022, right? You can't just kind of keep those those type of gains coming in, like year over year, month over month. Still, I see a lot of good catalysts for the SPY. Are we at the back end of a bull cycle? I think so. We're not in a we're not a bearish market right now, but I do see tailwinds, signs of it being at the ascent, basically, of a bear market. But so that's why I really want to watch the SPY really closely. I don't care what CNBC is telling me or whatever I'm reading. I do care about that in terms of like getting a read on the industry, but I want to look for myself. And what I'm seeing is we're basically in a pattern, like a pattern here. Like I said, we're in this 460 and then to the downside of 453. So if we can stay here, catch a little bit of momentum to the upside, we would be fine, right? And this is what I was watching for last week, right? So I usually like to do monthly, weekly, daily. Monthly, it's been more the same, but basically weekly, we're having a series of higher lows, right? I will say that over the past like 2 months, well, actually a month, so since the start of the year, we've also had a descending area of resistance. So we'll see what happens. This week is going to be really interesting because even though we do have higher lows, it's kind of getting tighter and tighter around this area, at the week level, right in the middle of that trading range, right? And if you break it down to the day level, it gets a little bit more interesting because you do see kind of like I said, hey, the start of the year, basically the start of the trading year, that was kind of the peak of 2022. And since then, we've been in a downslide, right? But what you do have is higher lows, like a low here, right? A higher low, a higher low. And then we busted out of this channel that we were working on. Can we bust into it? It looks like it wants to, but we do have, like I said, this kind of descending resistance line here. I'm not too worried about that. I would love to catch a little bit more at 453 and kind of start, building that position a little bit heavily or a little bit more kind of at this level. But the SPY, if you're looking up for the upcoming week, it doesn't look too good, but it also doesn't look super bad. Like I said, if we have like really good earnings that pop up out of this range, that'd be great. But we do have I think over the next couple days, this week is going to be really interesting to see as we come across this line, how we're going to react kind of in this middle line. So maybe middle of next week, I want to see kind of if we kind of stay below this descending trend line or we can pop over that, right? If we pop over that, I'm super bullish and I would love to kind of back the truck up a little bit more or spin a little bit more. But if we don't, I'm just going to kind of play it to the safe side. But one reason why I'm watching SPY, because all these other ones, like I'm watching GRIN as well, and this has a beta. So I've been watching GRIN for I don't know, let's say 3 months. Basically, I've been calling it out for that. I think the last 3 weeks, specifically for this area that is trading at right now above this kind of $1780 area. This is looking at the month level, and if you look, you kind of have a monthly cup and handle pattern, right? So for the cup, like I said, you have this cup, and then you have a handle position here where you kind of you come to an area, and then you start breaking back over the lip of the cup, right? We're at this, and this is why I've been calling this out, because you do have that interesting pattern that's been forming for about 3 years now, right? And we're finally at that breakout point that we're doing. But what I've been noticing with GRIN, especially lately, is it has a beta of 1.04. So it follows the SPY, but it's not a high beta company, in my opinion. So when you have a beta, that's how closely it mimics the SPY. Basically, and you saw this past week. Those days, and those days that the SPY was kind of was green, we did have that you had that I think it was like a 7% pop in that day, right? So even though it's over this breakout area, it's going to need some help from the SPY to get that. So I think if the SPY starts booking or starts cooking, you're going to see this one kind of pop off. Right now, it's playing, like I said, at this 1770, 1780 level. As long as it holds above that, I'm happy. If it breaks below that, I wouldn't want to hold this one. This, like I said, this is super speculative play. But I will say the reason I originally started watching GRIN, and if you've watched a couple episodes, you already know, even though it's a speculation play for me, it is one of the I think it's the number 7 quant rating stock in Seeking Alpha. There's 4,200 stocks that the quant rating associates a score of, and this one specifically is number 7 of those 4,200, right? So that's what got me interested in it originally. It was number 1 at one point. That's what actually I started looking at. I was like, wow, why is this one number 1? I started looking at it and see my previous episodes for more on like why I'm watching it. But basically, that's what got me interested. And then I looked at it and I was like, damn, this is like a cup and handle pattern that we're playing with here. And as long as it kind of stays over this 1777 area, I'm happy with it. Or you take profits when you see some jumps here. But this is going to need some help with the SPY. And that's kind of why I'm also watching SPY for these beta stocks that are following it that I'm following. Like on good SPY days, these are going to rip even better. But for this one specifically, I like at the month level. Hey, you do have RSI at the month level a little bit over. You're about 79 right now. Not too bad because at the month level, this one could run 87 and some change and not blink an eye, right? MACD doesn't want to pinch yet. MACD is still diverging to be on the bullish side, right? This thing's just going up, right? This blue line doesn't even want to come close to this yellow line, which is what you want to see there. At the week level as well, you do have a smaller cup and handle pattern, but at the week level, we've actually broken and held this line pretty fun or pretty well, right? This kind of 1778, 1777 line, right? It's kind of, for the past 3 weeks, it's actually broken or held it, which is really good. You have, and, for the first time, basically since, October, you have bullish MACD at the week level, which is great. Also, like, hey, this blue line finally made it over this yellow line. We hadn't seen that in a few weeks, right? A few months actually. And RSI is kind of following that same pattern to like go slogging up. Like I said, this thing isn't blasting off. Stocks aren't blasting off right now as much, but you are seeing a slow grind up, and that's exactly what you want to see there at the month, week, day level still looks good too. Day level, the RSI kind of, you did have that hard red day. It did close under, but it poked back under the next day. You have RSI going up. You have MACD almost wanting to pinch to be bearish, but hasn't done it yet. But you still see price over this line, which I'm enjoying as well. The other one that has a beta that's following the SPY, one that I've been watching for a while too, is MTH. MTH is Meritage Corporation. They're a home builder play. They're actually the reason I've been watching MTH for a while, when I was originally, you can go to like episode 43 for the original bull thesis on MTH specifically. But the genesis of watching this company specifically was a Barron's article on the overall bullishness of the housing industry. It's a really good article. Go to Barron's, seek up I think it's housing industry. Just look that up, and I think it might be one of the top 5. But basically, they had a 10-year. They're looking at the next 10 years, and they see a housing deficit that is there now. So there's not enough houses right now, and they don't see that it's changing for the next 10 years. I actually linked an episode on my Twitter, so go follow my Twitter for the Motley Fools episode. Actually, this past week, where they have a similar super cycle for housing. They see it as 4 to 6 years. Still, I think the truth is going to lie somewhere between those three numbers. So maybe like in the 5-year range, where we're going to have a housing deficit or a housing super cycle. We do have some headwinds coming in for the housing industry, right? So I can see the housing market cooling off with inflation, rate hikes, housing prices going up. But I see that as a correction, not necessarily, not a correction, but a cooling off of that industry. But this is going to be a long haul industry. Housing booms, millennials getting in, people are working from home more. So these are going to be interesting things to watch. But the interesting thing about MTH, I think it was KB Homes. They actually had an earnings this past week, and they fucking blew it away. And they even called out bullishness for the upcoming year, which plays well with MTH because MTH, as I said, that Seeking Alpha Quant rating, GRIN was number 7 in the whole stocks that they're following. Well, MTH is number 1 in the housing industry. So they're the number 1 quant rating for a home builder. I think there's 22 different home builders that the quant rating follows, and this is number 1 actually, right? So really a lot of good stuff there. The other thing I like about MTH is they have earnings coming up. So I think it's next week. So 127. So that's next Thursday, right? They have their own earnings coming out, which I'm very excited about. Right now, this stock is 17% under the average price target. If you look at Yahoo Finance and Finviz, it's 17% under what the analysts say it should be, right? And I love it when those prices are still like in that, like anything under 20. I don't want to go like 60% under the average price target, right? I don't want the price to be too discounted, right? Because that to me signifies something underlying issue with the chart or the technicals itself. But 20 is that really good area where you have that meat on the bones, right? To say, I'm not paying too much for this, but also it's not a stock that's in a decline that I need to watch out for, right? So I think there's a lot of meat on the bones there. Over the last 20 quarters, right, they've meet or beat EPS expectations 95% of the time. That's amazing. Over the last 6 quarters that they've released earnings, they've actually raised 67% the day after they release earnings, right? So those are pretty good. I like to put numbers behind my back. 67, I want that to be a little bit closer to 80, but that's not the worst thing, right? Because I believe in the company specifically itself. Right now, they're expected to have same quarter year over year. So looking at this time last year, they're expected to beat the EPS estimate that they had last time by 81%. I want those to be like triple digit numbers, but as long as you're showing solid EPS growth year over year, that's what I love. And this one is expected to be over the last estimated EPS this time last year by 81%. Love that, right? Like I said, I think it's an interesting time to get into this. Again, as we saw with GRIN, you do have an interesting monthly cup and handle that it was playing with here. You see the cup, you see the decrease for the handle, and then we're off this new area. That's exactly what you see with kind of cup and handles. You see the cup, you see the decrease, and then you see the breakout of the handle itself at the month level. Month level was looking a little bit shaky, right? Honestly, like you have RSI kind of cooling down. As we saw with GRIN, it was kind of going up. This one's going down. MACD is kind of flat floundering to being pinching to be bullish, or sorry, bearish. So not, still something to watch there. But what I do like about this one specifically is at the week level, it was following. It's breaking back into this channel that I identified, a couple months ago, a month ago, or something like that. You see RSI coming up to be bullish. Finally, right? RSI was kind of following price down for the last few, basically since mid-November, right? But it's kind of coming back. RSI kind of poking back up. MACD is still bearish, but it looks like it wants to kind of even out finally to be bullish. You, like I said, at the week level, you do see I identified this level, basically connecting these. Like I got an upward channel, I got another channel, a lower channel. It's finally breaking back into this upward channel, which is I wanted to watch for here specifically. So I really like it at the week level as well. I think this lends itself to a nice chart going into earnings. I don't want to see going into the week before earnings or the week of earnings. Week of earnings, I do. Week before earnings or 2 weeks before earnings, I don't want this thing to blast off just yet. I want to get a little bit playing a little bit of positions here, because you think of it two ways. You either play the run up to earnings or you play earnings. It's really hard to play earnings, buy stock, hold through earnings. You really have to have things go the right way for you. But I really like to play where you have a week, 2 weeks to out, maybe even 3 weeks to kind of slowly get into that position for the week of earnings when everyone's buying it in preparation for a big blowout, and then kind of just selling it, either selling a position of it, selling, all of it, or just trying to hold it through earnings, which, man, if you got the cojones, do it. More power to you. What I do like I said, is it busted back into this channel. It did test this 200 EMA fine. This would have been a amazing opportunity to buy this. I wasn't actually watching it, but I would have loved to buy this at the 200 EMA because it showed support there. But breaking back into this channel is not bad either, right? And then you can play it, basically trying to play this 112, 113 area to see if it's kind of make this level going into earnings, which I'm a fan of right now. So I think this is a really good one to watch going into earnings, especially basically 2 weeks out before earnings. The other one I'm going to watch, if you watch me for a little bit, you already kind of know what I'm going to talk about for Coinbase. Coinbase, I think this is actually the last week. I only have 4 this week, but basically Coinbase is one I'm going to watch. I'm being early and being wrong are very, very similar. I don't think I'm necessarily wrong on Coinbase. I think I'm just too early, but also it rhymes with being wrong as well, right? But what I like about Coinbase specifically still, there's actually, January 17th through 19th in Miami, there's the North American Bitcoin Conference. Coinbase isn't that I saw at least actually participating in it, but it's bullish for the crypto segment in general, and that's exactly what Coinbase is. The conference used to be an only Bitcoin event, but now it's kind of moved to be more in terms of the crypto community, NFTs included, right? So anything under the sun, kind of crypto and NFT related, right? We saw kind of with the SPY, November basically was a time for, we saw kind of like the peak and the dip. Bitcoin's fall on that dip. Also, Coinbase is fall on that dip as well. If I look at this, basically up beginning of November, that's when a lot of these started to roll over. And people say that the Coinbase is correlated with Bitcoin. I don't think that's necessarily true. I think it is to a certain extent, but I think it's more correlated with the SPY, because over this last week, when you saw the SPY was ripping, and you do see, you had some green days with Coinbase, but basically, over this time, also Bitcoin has been up, and they didn't actually do anything with Bitcoin. So I think that it's interesting, because I think this is correlated to the SPY specifically, right, as a stock, and also Bitcoin, but it's also getting caught up in the Kathy sell-off. I think I talked about this last episode. Basically people are selling everything Kathy Woods, and I want to say Bitcoin is, I want to say in their top 5 holdings for their ARK fund, which basically has been selling off, same since kind of like November-ish. Well, I think even before that. But the reason I think Coinbase is different is because they have a 4 PE of 16, right? So even though it's in the category with high multiple companies, it's not exactly high multiple. It's actually pretty relatively priced for a valuation perspective with a PE of 16. I think the S&P average price to earning right now is like 22 or something like that. So even it's below the S&P, right? But like I said, being early is the same as being wrong. But this is an important area here for the, because 223 to 213 have been a really important area for this. It basically hasn't traded under, it hasn't traded under with a real body candle under 214, right? So if we can find some support at this area, it's going to be really, really interesting. But similar to how we saw earlier, you do have a descending area of resistance here. So until it can break over that, I don't think you're going to see a lot of volume coming in. Unfortunately for this one, since it's only been traded for basically since not even a year yet, you don't have all of those at the week level, month level, all those indicators like volume for trading. As we have for the other ones, but you can see that you have rising volume coming in here. I don't know if it's over average yet. It doesn't show it because it's so newly traded. But this 223 to 214 area have been really influential, or sorry, substantial for Coinbase. So something that I'm still watching as well. But I don't think we're going to see volume over average come in with that is bullish until it breaks out of this descending area. But hey, we're getting really close, right? Basically this only goes to the end of the year where this you can kind of match the lower highs, right? So it's going to be really soon that we kind of figure out what Coinbase is going to want to do to the upside or the downside. It's had a lot of bullish chatter coming in from price target analysts to new things that are coming in with the platform like NFTs and stuff like that. But we'll see here probably in the next week, and I'm really excited for Coinbase to see what it's going to do. Like I said, I think these two areas here are going to be really interesting, but it could always break to the downside, and you got to think of a plan. Hey, either I'm going to get out or I'm going to stay. I'm going to hold it, and I'm going to try to play this area here. Like if it bounces at this 213 area, I love it. I'm loving this. But if it breaks down even lower, there's no precedent for that. Like it doesn't the chart doesn't go lower than that. We're at the lows that even after the IPO. So you got to think, holy shit! Like I don't know what I'm gonna do. I know what I'm gonna do. I know what y'all gonna do. But anyways, I think it's worth watching. Like I said, it's SPY, Grind, MTH, which I really enjoy. Also ITB, right? ITB is one of the home builder ETF. I think that's due here for some loving as well. When you see all the home builders if you see the home builders coming up together as they did over the past week. From KB Homes and Coinbase. I'm really liking Coinbase just because hey, I'm a fan of the platform. I'm a fan of the fundamentals. I'm a fan of what they have coming up into the pipeline for the future, like NFTs, which is going to be really cool. Anyways, I hope everyone has a great week. Good luck and peace.